Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Starting off our discussion right away, we're joined here tonight in the studio by Mr. Tarek Refaat, the renowned journalist. Mr. Refaat, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Mr. Refaat, now the whole world has been watching the inauguration of the new U.S. President Joe Biden, the 46th president. Being a journalist, because the whole event was received with a lot of commotion over the couple of weeks right before the inauguration among Americans. Now, you're a journalist, you're exposed to all sorts of media, and at C News you're following up everything. How did you view the reception of the media of such an inauguration of the new president?
Actually, it was unprecedented events. It was it was an attack on U.S. democracy, and people didn't really know if things will go on or not. So the media was focused so much on the Capitol riots when Trump supporters started storming the Capitol, and Biden came to say to Americans, let's unite. Whether you are Democrats or Republicans, let's unite. And he also said that the secret to the solution of what's going on in the U.S. right now is the unity of the people and working together to solve many critical problems that the U.S. or the U.S. citizens are witnessing right now, from COVID-19 to losing their jobs. So it was really hard seeing such riots happen in the U.S., the land of democracy.
Yes. Mr. Refaat, now all the Americans focus on a few things that Joe Biden had promised to change from his predecessor, Donald Trump. Now, one of the first things that people saw was the vaccination process, approving the vaccines, trying to distribute and give the first shots for the vaccine, the first doses to the American society. Is that something that we should attribute to Joe Biden right away, or was it something that Donald Trump already started working on?
Actually, one of the mistakes, I personally adore former President Trump because he's not a politician, he's a businessman. He's a straightforward person, and unfortunately he's a very good businessman, but he came to power at a very critical point where he already dissolved the Obamacare. So healthcare was not really the priority on his agenda, and I personally think that Joe Biden won because Americans believe, after losing 400,000 lives, they believe that Joe Biden will bring the health care back and bring the Obamacare back. So actually Biden said today that he would increase the number of vaccination from 100 to 150 million a day. And I think, but there is low supply. There is low supply of vaccination, and so they said they will take 2 baseball courts and a shopping mall, put them as a vaccination center, but there is low supply. So we hear very good words and promises from President Joe Biden, and as Egyptians, we have very good connection with Americans, and we really wish them that this crisis end. But we really want to see all the people get vaccination and things start to improve again in the US, because the US is one of the most important countries.
Yes. Well, you've pointed out that one of Joe Biden's first requests was for Americans to unite and end that uncivil war, as he mentioned. How easy or hard do you think it will be for Americans to unite? The inauguration already took place. Donald Trump has left the White House. Do you think it would be such a difficult task for Americans to unite behind the new administration led by Joe Biden?
No, I don't really think so, because things will go on and things will move. Trump already left the White House, and they have to go after their leader and unite, because in unification they will be stronger and they will be able to solve all of their problems and get out of this crisis.
Well, he did leave the White House, Donald Trump, but this is the first time since 1896 that the outgoing president is not there with the incoming new president at the White House. He just left before Joe Biden was inaugurated and was admitted to the White House. But Joe Biden said that actually Donald Trump left him a very gracious message, a letter at the White House. How do you view this sort of episode of Trump just leaving early, but just leaving him a letter, and then Joe Biden coming in and saying, well, he wasn't there, but he left me a gracious letter? How do you view this?
Donald Trump, we've been used. Like Donald Trump had some enemies, and then they became best friends. And I personally think that Joe Biden and Donald Trump might one day become good friends. And Donald Trump didn't want really the people to remember him with just the riots. So he wanted to leave something good for the people to remember him afterwards. So one of them was the note, the generous note, as Biden called it. So it was a good move from Trump.
Yes. Well, Donald Trump, over the past 4 years, he made a lot of changes. He wanted to build a wall between the US and Mexico. He aborted the Obama health care. He withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord. A lot of changes, and one of the first things Joe Biden did as soon as he assumed office was reverse most of these decisions. Was that a logical step? Was that a step that everybody expected? Is it something that is welcomed by Americans? How does the international community and other countries as well view it? Trump actually denied any entry from certain Muslim nations, and Biden reversed that. How is the international community viewing this, and how is the American society viewing this?
We all know that President Trump has or had many supporters. And actually, when it comes to democracy, if you are, because the democracy rules are 50+1. So if half of the country is against you or with you, that doesn't make any sense. So the best case scenario is when you win like 75% or 80-90%, which some countries think it's not real elections, but it's real. And this is when you avoid the uncivil war, which he spoke about, because President Trump had many supporters too, and Biden, of course, had more supporters. So we've always been used to Republican comes and changes everything that the Democrat did, and vice versa. So in the case of Egypt, we don't really see that much, because we just move forward and build our country. We don't just, like, why from the first place did they accept these rules and then change them and then change them back? And
yes.
so reversing everything back is like going backwards. It's as if like you don't have a really good vision to adopt new things, so you just cancel the old rules and policies. But Joe Biden is promising so many good policies, including the ban on Muslim countries, including Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and even in Nigeria and other African countries, they were banned from immigrating or even traveling to the U.S.
Yes.
So that's a very good move. Also, going back to the Paris climate agreement, that's something very good, which President Trump also they will witness electric cars to decrease the amount of emissions. So it's he's dealing very well with many files, which he thinks former President Trump was very weak in dealing with them.
Well, let's talk a bit, bit by bit, regarding the reversal of these decisions. You've mentioned the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, how does the European community feel about that, reversing and reintegrating the US within that agreement? Countries such as France, Germany, the UK, how do they view now the United States, one of the main superpowers in the world, getting back into the Paris Climate Agreement?
Actually, it's called the Paris Climate Agreement, so everybody's sure that Europe is pretty optimistic and happy that the US is back. And also the US will be back in the World Health Organization strongly. That's what Biden promised. So we know, during the Trump era, there were some pipelines, oil and gas. They were being operated in wildlife forests, and this is one of the things that Biden will abolish, taking care of the environment, and I think this is a very good step, which the European Union appreciates and will appreciate.
Yes. Well, one of the things, I mean, China is one of the main countries responsible for the carbon emissions. However, under Donald Trump, there was a huge trade war between the US and China. How do you think Biden is going to go about with such a conflict in trade between both economic superpowers? Do you think he's going to stay within that sort of conflict, reverse it totally, reverse part of it, and maybe keep a little bit of the tariffs and the sanctions and all of that? How do you think Biden will deal with this huge economic conflict between both economies?
Actually, Americans did something which is the offshoring, which is producing American products, everybody knows, in China and elsewhere, cheaper labor. So this offshoring moved all the US capital to foreign countries, not only to foreign countries, but created jobs in foreign countries. And now Americans don't really, they are losing their jobs. Millions of Americans are losing their jobs because at one time entrepreneurs said that American people don't want to work this hard labor or making sneakers or laptops or mobile phones. They don't want to work like this. So that's why we do this offshoring process. But Biden sees also President Trump. So I think Biden will go with the Trump decisions and policies in the trade war, but he will end the trade war. So it will be negotiations of some other type, because he really concentrates now on the COVID vaccines in his country and U.S. jobs. He will make this initiative, Made in America initiative, which will make it very hard for U.S. entrepreneurs to produce in foreign countries. They will have to take the permission of the White House first. And the White House will ask the U.S. producers if they can produce the same product or not. If they cannot, then these companies are allowed to produce them or import these products. So he didn't mention that he will remove the 366 billion tariffs. He didn't mention anything of this course. But I think he will also be harsh with China, because China, as I call it, like China is the richest country. It has 40% of the money in the world.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Refaat mentioned, there is a lot of reversals, some change in policies, some reversal in policies, and some will find a balance between both. Let's check out this report regarding Biden's first 200 days. Everybody's watching regarding the security, strategic, economic, and health changes that will take place in the U.S. Let's check it out, and we'll be right back.
Three fundamental elements underpin U.S. President Joe Biden's style: democracy, diplomacy, and multilateralism. In contrast to outgoing U.S. President Donald Trump, Biden will seek to pull back from the authoritarianism seen under Trump over the past 4 years and to reinstate democratic norms in the U.S. He will look to increase the U.S. standing in the world through the advancement of soft power, co-option, and diplomacy rather than aggressive coercion. This as he will do via a return to the multilateralism and to the rebuilding of relationships and cooperation between the U.S. and other states and institutions. The Biden administration's national security team may be tempted to focus on the potential early tests by foreign adversaries, urgent matters demanding immediate attention, and potential quick wins such as the strengthening and lengthening of the joint cooperation and comprehensive plan of action with Iran, building on and expanding the Abraham Accords, and consolidating the Gulf Cooperation Council reconciliation process. Certainly it should do all these things, but in his first 200 days it also needs to fundamentally rethink how to have the United States advance its interest in a conflict-prone region located at the crossroads of Europe, Asia and Africa, as it increasingly turns its attention to the Indo-Pacific region and other parts of the world. The Middle East's most vexing problems cannot be solved, at least for now. Crisis will also need to be managed. Seeking to freeze conflicts or play the role of a spoiler may lack appeal to the U.S. policymakers used to playing the role of the regional peacemaker. But these alternative policies approaches can halt humanitarian disasters and deny victory to adversaries. In many cases, that will be good enough. The United States must become more adept at the limited use of force in circumstances well short of war that will remain necessary in the Middle East.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Mr. Refaat. Now, talking about the reversal of many things, a lot of people are concerned or really wondering what the new agenda of Joe Biden will be regarding the Middle East crises, what's happening in Libya, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Iraq. How do you evaluate or estimate or speculate the new agenda of Joe Biden? Is he going to follow suit with the same Trump strategy? Will he go back to the Obama and Bush sort of strategies regarding the Middle East crises? What do you think he will do?
Concerning the Middle East, it's one of the most important regions. Whether it's for American president or any other president, so it's on the top of his agenda. And speaking of big countries like Egypt or Saudi Arabia, these are big countries who were able or are able to deal with any U.S. president because the USA has many strategic partners in the Gulf region and in Egypt also. Maybe he would speak about some human rights deficiencies, maybe in China, at the Hong Kong. He wants democracy in China, and he wants China to back off from its neighbors in some territorial lands and seas. So I think he would be concentrating more with China and production and industry and COVID rather than really concentrating with the problems in the Middle East.
Well, talking about the Middle East, always the Palestinian-Israeli file has always been on top of every leader's agenda, be it in Europe or the US or in the Arab world as well. Now, Trump actually moved the consulate embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which was a very bold move by a US president. Do you think that Joe Biden will go along the same line? Do you think he will try and reverse it back? Do you think he will find or try to mediate, finding a good balance between the Palestinians and Israelis? Is he going to please the Jewish lobby in the US, or is he going to go against it?
We've heard many statements by Biden, even before he became president, that he's pro-Jewish and pro-Zionist. So I really think that he would support the Jews or the Israelis even more than President Donald Trump, because Donald Trump made some deals, like with Morocco, if concerning the Moroccan desert, if you normalize, we would accept that it's part of Morocco. And he also made other deals, like if you want the F-35, you have to normalize. So it was all basically deals. But when it comes to Biden, I feel it a little bit aggressive in this concern. And we are wishing peace and prosperity for everyone. Like Egypt was the first country to make a peace deal with Israel. Now, 40 years after, or even more, Arab countries are starting to normalize relations. So I think that Egypt had a very broad vision and a broad sight, because you really don't want to have wars with your neighbor.
Yes, definitely. Well, what about the Iranian nuclear agreement? Donald Trump actually withdrew the United States from that agreement. Iran, in turn, started enriching their uranium. Do you think the US will get back to the Iranian nuclear agreement? Do you think they're going to lift some of the economic sanctions imposed on Iran? How do you feel the whole world will be watching the US administration regarding the Iranian nuclear agreement?
Yes, I believe that he will take the same path as President Obama, he will continue negotiations and continue the agreements which President Obama had with the Iranians, because negotiations were working well, and it wasn't a good step to stop these negotiations and putting sanctions. So I think he will make a better deal, like the Obama did.
What about the uranium they already enriched during the sanctions and the U.S. Removing itself from that agreement?
Yeah, because Iranians, they know that they have to have such a powerful weapon to scare off the Americans, because it's not a good thing when you are always in a constant war or a cold war with one of the strongest armies in the world. So they know that the U.S. have a much stronger army, so they have nothing to do except enriching the uranium.
Well, if we're going to focus on the Egyptian-American relations, we've seen President Sisi having really good relations with former President Donald Trump. Now, how do you expect the relationship will go with Joe Biden? President Sisi witnessed the end of President Barack Obama, the 4-year term of Donald Trump, and now he's embarking on a new era with Joe Biden. How do you think the relationship between Egypt and the U.S. will have? Is it going to change? Will the dynamics change? Are we going to diversify our relations? Are we going to depend on them or not depend on them as much?
Unlike like controversial to the good relation between former President Trump and President Sisi, at the end of his tenure, we saw President Trump. He was trying to stop the funding to Egypt from the peace agreement, the Camp David agreement. He wanted to stop this funding from going to Egypt. And it was very surprising, but the Senate didn't approve. Actually, and President Sisi was the first Arab president to congratulate Biden on the new on the presidency. And from what I see from Joe Biden, a person who's trying to unite his country because there is a political divide, and a person who wants to improve his economy, a person who wants to adopt good policies away from discrimination. And I think that Joe Biden, if he paid a close look at Egypt, he will find what he dreams of in Egypt, because this country is united. This country have already started doing what Joe Biden is trying to do. So it's different faces of the same coin. So I really believe that Joe Biden will have a good relation with President Sisi, not because of anything, but because President Sisi proved to the whole world that Egypt is witnessing a new era of prosperity, of non-discrimination, of women empowerment, of human rights. So I believe that the relations will go very well between the two presidents.
What about the relations between the U.S. and Russia? It's a roller coaster ride, really, between both countries for decades now. Do you think the relationship between both countries will flourish in the coming period, or do you think it's going to get into a hibernation stage, or maybe it's going to be a little bit tense?
I believe, yes, it will be a little bit tense. There would be more sanctions on Russia from the U.S., I believe so. And like Biden, before even becoming a president, he was speaking of human rights and democracy in Russia, and leaving people to protest. He wants protests against President Putin, and he was asking about one of the main challengers of Putin. So he already started.
Yes. Well, one final thing, going back to the U.S. Internal politics and administration, now having Kamala Harris as the first sort of Latino, multi-ethnic vice president, female vice president for the country. What does that? How is that being reflected on the U.S. media, on the U.S. community?
Yeah, it's the first position that a woman holds or heads in the U.S. As the vice president. From even if she wasn't colored, she is the first woman to hold this position, and that's history. Also, the defense ministry, an African American who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And also the first woman to head the treasury is also she's also the first woman. So Biden actually is giving positions, and he's breaking the barriers, and he's empowering women, empowering colored people, and he has big plans of granting the citizenship to 11 million illegal people who stay for a long time in the U.S. So he has wonderful agenda, magnificent agenda, and we all wish him that he goes on with his. He manages to unite the Americans, because at the end of the day, if the U.S. is flourishing and have a healthy economy, a healthy population, it will affect Egypt, and it will affect the whole world with peace and prosperity.
Yes. Well, do you think, as you've mentioned, the appointments of all these different ministers holding really important positions within the administration of all different segments of society, do you think that this is enough to get the whole American society united again behind Joe Biden?
They really want to engage everyone. They want to engage, like, especially we saw Republicans, they want everybody to get engaged. So they got so many votes from colored people, from African Americans, from Hispanics. We even saw Jennifer Lopez singing in the inauguration and speaking in Latin, so about liberty. So that's Democrats. They always unite colorful people and even immigrants. They wish to be U.S. citizens to vote for them.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you've just heard, there is a lot of work to be done by the U.S. President Joe Biden in many different files, be it domestically in the U.S. and internationally within the European community, the African community, the Middle Eastern region, the Asian region and economy as well. A lot of people will be focusing on the first 200 days of the new U.S. administration. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. Before I go, I'd like to thank my distinguished guest, Mr. Tarek Refaat, the journalist. Thank you very much, Mr. Refaat, for joining us. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.